I would now like to introduce our very first speaker, Briana Warner, CEO of Atlantic Sea Farms, Kelp in Production, located in Portland, Maine. Founded in 2009, Atlantic Sea Farms is the first commercially viable seafood farm in the United States with the goal of diversifying how coastal waters are used while providing a domestic, fresh, and healthy alternative to imported seaweed products. Briana Warner has dedicated her life to doing well by doing good. She is passionate about her incredible home state and working with partner farms to kelp the earth. After serving several tours in the US Foreign Service, Briana opened and sold a wholesale bakery in Portland, focused on pies with an international flair and employing recent refugees resettled in the Portland area. Before taking the helm at Ocean Approved in 2018, she worked to diversify coastal incomes as the Economic Development Director at the Island Institute, a nonprofit focusing on sustaining island and coastal communities, both in Maine and elsewhere. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Briana Warner.
Hi, everyone. It's a bummer not to be there in person with you all. I know this was originally scheduled for last year and then the world got changed pretty significantly, but it's so lovely to be meeting you here. If we could get, I'm doing the view permissions, and I know you guys told me about this 3 times and I still am having a hard time figuring it out. But to request remote access, and you guys told me how to do it a bunch of times. But what I'm gonna do is actually just, can I just share the screen, guys? We'll see if this works. Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yes, we can. Can you make it bigger or full screen?
You should. Don't you love this new world that we're living in and how we always feel like we're experts at it, and then when we actually have to do it, we can't. That's okay. Here we go. How about now? Is it coming up? Well, I'll just talk for a second. So as Kirby said, while it's loading, as Kirby said, I am the CEO of Atlantic Sea Farms based up here in Maine. And we are the first commercial seaweed farm in the country as Ocean Approved in 2018. And what we've built since, in 2007, what we've built since is came on in 2018 as CEO, and we've quickly moved to really changing our mission and our goals to be focused around kelp as a diversification tool for the coast of Maine, while also helping to mitigate some of the effects of ocean acidification here in our state. So just to give you a little bit of background about Maine, because not all of you know our microeconomics here. We are a state that is, on our coast, that is predominantly dependent on lobster, which is a monoculture here. There are very few other wild options for fishing here on the coast at this point for a number of different reasons. But what we do see in lobster is a confluence of currents that has created a perfect atmosphere for these lobster to come in at a higher rate than has been done in the past. So what that means is we're seeing kind of a boom in lobsters right now. But what we also know for a number of reasons is when there's a boom in any industries, particularly when you're looking at a natural resource industry, there is a bust on the other side. And the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of oceans in the entire world. So just let that sink in for a second. This is a pretty urgent problem, especially on a coast where, where our primary industry north of Portland is lobster. So take this 2 billion, that's the problem statement. The opportunity statement is we have 5,000 plus lobster license holders in the state of Maine that have huge boats. They are so capable on the water. They know how to tie knots. They have a ton of social license. And they do have some extra cash at the moment because lobster is doing well. So instead of doing the thing that we always tend to do in economic development is to wait until something goes wrong with our heads in the sand. And then when something goes terribly wrong, we try to fix it. Why don't we actually try to create supplemental income sources in advance of any issues in the lobster industry? So what we're trying to do is we're working with fishermen who have the tools to be wonderful kelp farmers to farm kelp. And that what we do is help drive the demand for that kelp by turning it into several delicious products. And our supply chain, which I will hopefully be able to figure out. Here's some of our products that are now available nationwide in retail. But this is how our process works. We start by creating all of the seed in our state-of-the-art nursery in southern Maine. And to create kelp seed, you actually have to take kelp from the wild, and then you basically have it reproduce and attached to a system of spools, where that line then is inoculated with seed that you can then spread across the water. We train and recruit partner fishermen. So now we work with 24 fishermen up and down the coast of Maine. And we've gone from 30,000 pounds the year I took over to now this year will be around 850,000 pounds that we'll be pulling from the water among those 24 farms. We work with the fishermen to figure out where to put their farms, how to farm. And then we give them those free seeds, which allows them and we help them with their permitting. So that allows them to have the free seed, we mitigate their risk, and then they put it out in the water between November and December. And then it grows for the next 6 months. Starting around April is when we'll start our harvest season. This year, maybe a little bit earlier because it has been a little bit of an warm winter. And our seeds have just really taken off like crazy this year. So we may be able to start harvesting probably second or third week of March. And what we do is we run logistics for that. So what we really wanted to do is create a system where fishermen were able to make it feel and look a whole lot like lobster, where they go out and fish and they land it on the wharf and then they wave goodbye to it. So there's no need for the marketing. There's no need for the processing. So we then guarantee to buy back every single blade and every single pound of kelp that is grown on those farms. We pick it up at the dock. We bring it back to our processing facility where we turn it into several different products. So, since this is really, Barton will be talking a lot about the food side. And so I thought I really just wanted to focus on this presentation on what these faces look like, who these people are. We have a thing here that says Jesse's dad. Our marketing manager's dad is one of our farmers. We're very much family here. And if, people always say like, how is your farmers network equitable? And I'm always like, well, Jesse's dad would tell us if it wasn't, because we live it every day. These people are our friends. They're people we've known for years, and we take very seriously the partners that we build in our network. Here's some more farmers that we work with up and down the coast. So we've gotten a lot of great press in the past, in the past year, and part of that is in the past 2 years, and part of that is because people have been talking about kelp as a product for a number of years. Kelp is the new kale. It's been the new trend for the last 5, 7, 8 years. But until we came along, there wasn't a buyer that could make this an actual supplemental income source for people. Some of the folks that we're working with right now are making, in the $70, $80, $90, $100,000 range just in kelp farming alone. And until we were able to come in as a buyer and make investments that we needed to make in order to produce this product into something that Americans want to eat, because people don't really want to eat a kelp that's just pulled out of the water and sold. I mean, some people do, but not enough to float an industry. So we've created products that are adaptable, accessible, and are delicious to the US consumer. And that has allowed us to drive demand. And we always talk about how if one person eats kelp in California, every pound that they're eating is driving impact directly to our coast. That's one more farmer we can get in. That's one more harvest we can do. That's, a bunch of carbon we can remove from the water. So it's gotten a lot of really wonderful partnerships. And before I'd go any more, I would just love to show a video that we did with a partnership with Sweet Green and earlier this year.
When you look at the clean, cold waters of Maine, you may expect to see lobster boats and fishing. Below these icy waters, we are growing one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. This is a kelp farm. Kelp is a type of seaweed. I love eating kelp. It's super nutrient packed with potassium, calcium, iodine, B12, omega-3s, all nutrients that we need more of in our diet. It can be used in anything, soups, desserts, salads, anywhere. Most of the seaweed that we eat in the United States is actually imported. So it's super processed. It's often rehydrated and dyed with a lot of artificial coloring. Atlantic Sea Farms is doing something really different. The kelp is grown in super clean waters. It's packaged right away. So we're locking in all the nutrients and then we distribute it to partners like Sweetgreen. It's something that I can feel good about eating, something I can feel good about feeding my children, and something that tastes just really great. We also provide all of our seeds free of charge to our partner farmers, and we guarantee purchase of all of the kelp grown on the farms.
My family's been fishing in the state of Maine since the 1600s.
We really started looking into diversification so that we're not just dependent on lobstering.
We chose kelp farming because the timing of it went really, really well with lobstering. It gave me something else to do and another source of income throughout the winter when lobstering slowed down.
It's not just our farm, we look at it as it's our community's farm. And that allows the fishermen in our area to really be a part of this farm.
Most of the food we eat has some sort of negative effect on the environment. Our kelp has an extremely positive effect. We have no fertilizer, no arable land, and it actually helps improve water quality and helps mitigate the effects of ocean acidification. This partnership with Sweetgreen gets our fresh kelp in front of people. It's normalizing kelp in a really fantastic way, and Sweetgreen is a great partner to do that. Every time somebody eats some of this kelp, they're helping improve the lives of coastal fishermen who are diversifying their income in the face of climate change, and they're also improving their own health and getting a great, delicious meal. We're really excited to do it ethically and sustainably in a way that people can feel really good about what they're eating, and we truly believe that good food should do good.
That's an example of sort of the partnerships that we're building to try to get the word out about kelp and to try to get the word out about our partner farmers and what we're building here on the coast. This, what you guys are doing here, what you're building is really important because I think getting to kind of past what we're starting to see is there are people in their teens, in their 20s, in their 30s, in fact, millennials and lower, who don't find seaweed strange. It is not new to them. In fact, the seaweed snack market has taken off exponentially over a number of years. That has shown huge success, bigger success than in most areas of the grocery area of the grocery segment. So while seaweed is growing at 9% a year or more, the natural food chain is growing around 3%. So I think what we're starting to see is that buyers who tend to be a little bit older, who tend to find seaweed weird, or chefs that can also be a little bit older and find seaweed weird, are starting to realize that if they just put it on the menu, people will eat it. People are excited about it. It was one of the best-selling salads that Sweetgreen had ever put out. Similarly, at colleges and universities, kids already eat seaweed. They've been eating it since they were 10 on these seaweed snacks. This is not new to them. It's new to cooks in America that are a little bit older. And I think we've seen really a revolution here where kids are leading this charge, and climate-friendly eating and climate-focused eating is something that people are doing more and more. So if we're creating these accessible products that have that umami flavor, that are easy to use, that you can simply stick a fork in and eat, and it's very accessible to people, then there's no need to be a great chef like Barton is in order to cook this stuff. So that's really what we're focused on. We've done fast casual partnerships, a lot of restaurant partnerships, obviously that all kind of dropped out in March of last year. And we've shifted quickly to retail. We had some retail products, but they're now won several different taste awards this year, which is the big feather in our cap, because it's one thing to be really behind our social mission. If people aren't excited about how it tastes, it doesn't quite matter, because people will only buy it once if it doesn't taste good. So we've won taste awards for our fermented seaweed salad, for our seaweed-based kimchi that we call sichi, and our sea beet kraut, which is a beet-based raw seaweed kraut. And then we have 2 frozen products that are kelp cubes, which are for smoothies and pestos and pastas and soups, and then our ready cut kelp, which is a shredded blanched kelp. So that's available across the country. You can find it on our website as to if it's in your local store, and if it's not, you should ask. But also, if you're going to college, or if you're director of innovation or food at your university or at your local institutions, putting kelp on the menu is not actually the risk that people think it is. It always does well. Reach out to us. We're available to talk about it and make suggestions of how we've seen it work elsewhere. We're sending, even now, we're sending pallets and pallets out to the West Coast of universities who brought it on, and they're only at a quarter capacity right now, but still buying quite a bit of kelp. So I don't know, Kirby, if you'd like me to take some of these questions now or wait till our Q&A with Bart later.
Yeah, we have time. We can definitely take a couple questions now. One question's from Renee. It says, "Hi, Briana. A question from a fellow Mainer. How does the permitting process work for growers to establish sites? How competitive is it? And are there areas that are off limits?"
Yeah, so we have our own off-limit areas. Like kelp can be grown in most places in Maine, purely based on statute, because you don't need to grow them in open areas. You can kind of grow it anywhere. We, however, only accept kelp and only work with partner farmers that are working in areas that are open to shellfish growing. And that's really just a micro issue, a microbial issue, and an image issue. Kelp doesn't have the same uptake of some of the dangerous toxins that can be uptaken by oysters and scallops and mussels if in the wrong area. But we still feel like it's really, one of our big branding points here is that our water is done in the clean, cold waters of Maine, and we want to make sure that that is true. For example, our heavy, like the heavy metal content from the stuff coming from most of Asia is so very high that it's, I don't feed it to my children. Those seaweed snacks coming from Korea or China, I mean, their heavy metal results are astronomical and very scary, quite frankly. And ours are just really clean because of where we grow it. So we take that very seriously, of only growing in really good water. As far as permitting goes, we have a very friendly permitting system here in Maine as compared to most states. That's not to say it's perfect. Certainly, it could be more friendly to aquaculture, but one of the big things it takes into account, which we appreciate, is any potential gear conflict with other uses on the water. And that is very heavily considered. Are there lobster traps there? And for us in seaweed, that's pretty easy because nobody's doing much in the water in the winter. So we don't run up against the same gear conflict issues. And the other one is a navigational hazard. And, we just make sure to site around that. But if you can pass those 2 barriers and it meets our standards, it's a pretty friendly system. Most of our partner farmers are at 4 acres, so really small farms. But when you think about the density of what that is, it's 13,000 feet of line in those 4-acre farms, and you can grow up to 5 to 7 pounds a foot. So it's also one of the most efficient ways to grow food in the world, especially when you think about how it's not using any arable land and water. But we have a great relationship with the Department of Marine Resources up here that does the permitting. I sit on their board, on their advisory board. And I think they're really excited about the fact that we're working with fishermen to diversify their income. The social license is already there, and that's a really exciting story for Maine, that people are lobstermen, the people who have been working here for generations, are also the ones that are getting into aquaculture, to kelp aquaculture with us.
That's great. So another question's from Mark. What environmental conditions are required for good growth?
So there's, I have a kelp scientist on staff that if he heard me saying this would probably flip out, because he thinks it's, he really takes it very scientifically. You need this, that, and the other thing. And I think it's also just like a terroir thing that I think Maine just grows better kelp than elsewhere. But certainly it needs to be about 20 to 30 foot depth. We keep the lines about 7 feet underwater. There's a lot around that about, what sort of moorings you need to use to make sure at that 20 to 30 foot depth that you're held in place. The other thing about Maine that's really wonderful is we have a very protected coastline, and we have more coastline than the state of California. So we don't need sort of the giant chains and anchors that a lot of different areas would need, like if you were out on the Cape, or if you were out in Connecticut, or in many parts of Massachusetts. Alaska and Maine in particular have just really great growing conditions that are cold enough, but also get enough light during the spring. Doesn't grow much right now. Have some of those protections that makes the capital investment much smaller. Many people are getting in the water with us between $2,000 and $5,000 a farm. Some people are going a little bit bigger than that, but it's really cheap for people to go in when they already have 40-foot boats. They already have ropes. Many of them lay their own moorings, and the area is just so protected that they can actually get in for very cheap and effectively. And the fact that we give them free seeds makes the capital barrier to entry very low.
So that's a good segue into the next question from Shannon. How do the economics work? If you're providing free seed and buying back all of the product, what supports that ability?
We're still figuring that out, Shannon. If you would have asked me that in April of this year, I would have been like, nothing supports it. All of our customers are gone. I don't know what the hell we're doing. And we showed up for every farmer because that is what you do, because it is the right thing to do. And it's what we promised to do. And the only thing that matters at the end of the day in running a business is that you have your integrity on the way out. So I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you that I wasn't thinking that it was very possible that we'd pay all of our farmers, get all that kelp out, and be done. We harvested 450,000 pounds of kelp last year. That's no cheap investment, but we were very lucky in that we did have this retail brand, and we have an amazing team that was able to turn it around so quickly and find other sales outlets. But we were terrified of how we were going to get through after we paid. We knew we were going to pay our farmers. That was never a question. What after that, and how are we going to survive? And we did. And we have an amazing group of investors that showed up immediately to help us get through that and to make the pivot. So we're still trying to figure out the economics. We're the only ones doing what we're doing at this scale. So, there's no guidebook here. There's no one I can call and ask them how it's working for them. So we're sort of navigating it as we go. I think one thing that we've learned very, very well is that our partner farmers are really damn good farmers, and we know how to make really good seed. So if we can, and we have great products. So it's really just like making all three of those areas work efficiently and effectively. And I can't say that we are economically there yet. We're moving out of a facility very soon because we just, we have a 6,000 square foot facility, and in that facility went from 30,000 pounds to, 850,000 pounds, and trying to process that. So certainly we figured out that the economics work for Fisherman, where we know it will work for us. We see the path. We just had to kind of dust ourselves off this year, but everybody did. We're not unique in that, and forge a new path. So we're really excited about the work that we're doing in retail and some of the ingredients we're working with, and also excited for institutions and food service to come back. And we know that we'll be even better off then, because we'll have 2 channels now that we have built, which we're excited about.
Great. So is Atlantic Sea Farms offering a growth program similar to Green Wave? And are you researching other sea vegetable species? So that comes from Kelsey.
Thanks for the question, Kelsey. We are not a nonprofit. And I actually, we're pretty divorced from anything else. We're sort of going about it alone. So I can't comment one way or another on what Green Wave's doing, but we very much, when we work with farmers, we are focused on their income at the end, not just getting them started. So we help them get started, but we only do that if we know we can buy from them and we know that we can make it economically viable for them. So we take it very seriously up here that we're not going to get anyone in the water unless we know that they're going to be taken care of, because you can't just kind of sell kelp. And I know there's some people who are making a go of it. It's just very hard. It takes millions of dollars of investment on the production side to make it something that Americans want to eat at a large scale. And if you want to make money from growing kelp, it actually does need to be at the 4 to 8 acre level, 13,000 feet of line, 26,000 feet of line, because it's not, we're not talking lobster here. One of them is not, 5 pounds at the dock. and so scale is really important. And so what we're really trying to build is a scalable industry that really does drive money back to our farmers, but we're only doing that if we know we can stand by actually picking that up in the other end.
Great. So 2 of these questions kind of go hand in hand. One person said, Azur, hi, Briana, a fan of your work. I'm a prospective new kelp farmer in Rhode Island, undergoing the process now. Do you offer mentoring? And then someone else asked, what would interest a marine science student in kelp as a career opportunity?
So both great questions. I would love to be able to stop and take a breath for mentoring. I mean, I would love nothing more. And we always talk about our pie in the sky dream of having someone on staff that would be the educator that could go to all these schools and talk about kelp lines. And I can't tell you how many times a day I get emails, or my info act gets emails where my marketing manager's looking at it oh my gosh, we have these awesome 4th grade students that want to learn how to grow kelp. Can we go out to a farm? And I love those emails, and I can never say yes to them, right? Because right now I'm involved in the business of making this work for our 24 partner farmers. Everything I do every day is driven about making this work. When this works, not if, but when this works, and I feel okay, we got it. Now we can grow to 4 million pounds. Now we can grow to 7 million pounds. Now we can drive all of that impact to the coast. Then I cannot wait to talk to every 4th grade student about how they can grow kelp. But right now my head's down because we're doing something that no one's ever done. But there are some really great resources for kelp. There is an ocean approved farming manual that came out from the former owners, or the former CEO of Atlantic Sea Farms, which once was ocean approved. So there's farming manuals out there that we've created. We definitely put out a lot of content. Please do look at that and keep your eye on us. And right now, the best way I can mentor people right now is just making it work. And then the second piece on marine biology, I think if you're very interested in kelp, there are some amazing institutions, and even just in New England, that are doing incredible work on kelp, like Bigelow Laboratories up here in Maine, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. We work a lot with Charlie Yarish and Scott Lindell down there. We just hired our very own first seaweed scientist at Atlantic Sea Farms. And I was like, this doesn't exist, but I'm going to put it out there. I want a seaweed scientist. And I can't even tell you the amazing amounts of applications we got, and the amazing people out there that are studying kelp. But there's not a lot of them. I'm pretty sure if there's 5, I got all 5 applying. So keep studying it. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered around seaweed in general. We are looking at cultivating new species of native species in the Gulf of Maine, for example, like dulse, and working on research grants to try to figure out how we can commercialize that, because no one's done that at scale before. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. We don't know anything about seaweed in the United States. We are just so far behind. And there is so much to learn, and it's an awesome career path. And I think that we're going to see this industry continue to grow exponentially for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And also, if you're interested in the technology side of it, oh my gosh, the possibilities, seaweed as bioplastics, seaweeds as biofuels, of biotextiles, there is just so much opportunity and potential here, and so much that we don't know. So keep going with what you're doing.
Okay, and the last question's from Andra. How can we find more kelp at local stores and restaurants in Massachusetts or New England? I think we could open it up to the whole New England area.
So I'm going to say something that I know that many of you will put your hands up in the air about. I can't see most of you, but I'm about to say something that I know is not going to be popular. We fly over New England. people here in New England, outside of Maine, because they know us, and even in Spruce Head, people are buying kelp because they know the farmer out there, and we're very, very small. Like, it's a very small state. But I remember just like talking to stores in New England, or talking to restaurants in New England, or talking to, quite frankly, universities in New England. And I'll be like, oh, this is weird. You call UCLA, they're like, send me 4 pallets right now. Similarly, when you're going to restaurants in California or New York, or the Pacific Northwest, people are all like, they're like, where has fresh kelp been all this time? I've been having to buy dried kelp and then rehydrate it. And then you go to Boston and they're like, is this like the stuff that washes up on the ocean? So like, I don't know. I mean, like, I would love to see that not be the case, but we've not seen, and I'm like challenging all of you on this call to go into these restaurants when they open back up, and go into your university and say, I want this on the menu, because I honestly don't know what the push and pull is. Our backyard is LA and San Francisco and New York, not Boston. And that stinks. I do not want that to be the case, but it is. And I could keep beating my head against the wall right now, or I could just actually sell a ton of kelp everywhere else. So I would just say, go into your local stores, tell them I heard about Atlantic Sea Farms. They have these amazing products. I'm really into their seaweed salad. I'm really into their kelp cubes, and be ambassadors for this. I mean, that's the way it's going to change. It's the way buyers are going to change their thinking.
Yes, absolutely. I encourage everyone on this call right now to go to your local store, restaurant, what have you, and say, I want kelp now, New England kelp. So amazing info. Thank you so much. I'm all in, kelp the earth. Thank you for joining us today, Briana.